that you know. Harris is drinking, and yes, I'm thinking, and I'm plotting and scheming.
Comparable to riding a roller coaster. It really was. Going down the side, you would pick up speed as you went down, and as soon as you hit the bottom, boom, you're coming back up. The back of the ship, the deck back there, would always go under water as we started going back up, and it would flood the back end of the ship. It was the work deck back there.
Yeah.
That was a lot of things came loose, and they had to run out there and try to tie them down. You know, one guy was out there, he was secured, and they had ropes around him for him to get out there and try to tie down one of the ROVs. But he was out there lashing, and, you know, he's trying to keep his balance, and then he's got to hold his breath because here he's about to go underwater. And then when he clears the water, he catches his breath and he works some more. And there's no way to say, okay, time out. We want to restart on this. You can't do it.
Yeah.
So good crew though. Good crew handled it well.
Yeah, the fishing crews, man, they some of the best people, man. And you have to be in sync because your life's literally on the line. I do want to bring up the Titanic con and stuff, before we get you out here, but I want to ask you like about your high school teaching career. Is that something that you did for a long period of time? Was that a career for you at one point? And when did you get into that?
My college career was at Clemson University. My freshman year, I played football. I had to stop due to ankle surgery. I learned a lot about myself playing on a team that went on 2 years later to win a national championship. I was very happy for a lot of my friends on that team. They were awesome teammates. I got a degree in physics, not teaching. I got a degree actually in physics, and then got teacher certification and began to teach. The day that I first was hired to teach, I had 4 interviews, was the day that the Space Shuttle Challenger blew up in January of 1986. And I got 2 job offers, one for the remainder of that school year and one starting in August at a school in South Carolina near Clemson University by chance. I ended up retiring from South Carolina in 2011 and then started teaching at the college level. I do have a master's degree in physics, so I'm able to teach at the college level. And I teach at Asheville Buncombe Technical College in Asheville. And I have a lot of wonderful students that come through, and it's my job to get them to understand all of these wonderful physics equations and principles and concepts. And I've got some really gifted students. I've been very blessed in my career. So I'm been teaching, and let's see, in 2 more years, I get to retire in North Carolina if I so choose. Dirt and I are on a contest to see who's going to outlive the other one. I'm older than Dirt is what some of my students used to tell me. But I've been very blessed in life. God has provided open doorways that I've chosen to step through. And I've been very blessed with, I've got to meet some of the world's greatest underwater explorers. I got to work with the one ship that everybody knows the name of if you've been through 3rd and 4th grade. I was a part of the 1996 expedition to recover Titanic artifacts in 1996. I was there as an observer and then made some proposals. And then in 1998, I was a full-fledged member of the expedition. And I built an ROV, a remotely operated vehicle. In other words, a robotic camera system. It was tethered, so we controlled it with a joystick. And we had a 3-year plan. The first year we were going to go down, make sure it works, do some simple tests. We were hoping to go inside of it in the year 2000, inside the ship, and look at some of the incredible things that are still inside the bow and inside the stern, what's left of it. And then in 2002, we were going to add a manipulator. Manipulator is like a claw. and we were going to design and we were going to work on a system to where we could either tag or use a mechanism to attach to something and help bring it to where it could be recovered. Our system was small, so it wouldn't have a lot of power to lift heavy objects, but we could tag them, move them into a basket of some sort, and then the basket be lifted up. So those are some things that we had planned. But the big thing we did in 1998, as you'll see behind me, is we recovered this large piece of the hull. It weighed 17 tons. It's called the Big Piece. And you mentioned the Titanic con.
So
we're having a.
But sorry, that's a real, that's not a green screen. That's a real.
Well, that's a virtual background for my Zoom. That is a photograph of the actual. That is at the Luxor in Las Vegas.
Oh, really? Okay.
It is. They have a Titanic artifact exhibition that's on the atrium level, right above the casino level. It's beside this new King Tut exhibit. And there's also a couple of other things. The Blue Man Group is on the atrium level. They got a great restaurant called Diablo's. Outstanding food, A+ quality and reasonable. Anyway, that they did not pay me for that endorsement. But this piece was recovered, and it was about 5 years worth of work, and a great team got together to bring it up. August 10th is the 25th anniversary of the recovery of the Big Piece. So we're going to do Titanic Con 2023, the Titanic Conference, in Las Vegas, the 9th, the 10th, and the 11th of August. The first day, we're going to try to have some Titanic family members there, meaning somebody who had relatives on board the ship. Now, I myself, in 2018, did a lot of genealogy, and I found out that a passenger named Constance Willard, same as mine, that her family was from Horsmonden, Kent, in England. My family, the Willard line, is from Horsmonden in Kent. And so I started looking at the two side by side, and I found a common ancestor. So we are distant cousins, 7 or 8 generations back. So I'm not a close relative, but I'm still a cousin. Her line lived in the Ohio region and Minnesota region, and they made a lot of money off of railroads and some other ventures. And my branch of the family left a little earlier and wanted land, so they came down south. And the Civil War erupted. Poor dirt farmers couldn't pay the high taxes that were brought into it, so they lost a lot of their land. That's what my family did, because we were all poor dirt farmers by the time the Civil War was over. Most of my family became mill workers because it was that tough. Whereas the Civil War and everybody moving westerly just added to the railroad industry, and the railroad just grew and grew. But that's what her family did. But the first day of the conference, we hope to have some Titanic family members. We're going to have Frank Goldsmith Jr., whose father was Frankie Goldsmith. Frankie was a 9-year-old survivor with his Frank Jr.'s grandmother, Emily Goldsmith. Emily and Frankie were both survivors. He lost his grandfather. He never knew his grandfather because grandfather died on Titanic. So Frank has an incredible story. We've invited several others. We hope to have 4 or 5. And then we're going to have the 1996 team, where they tried to raise this and some complications came in. In the 96 team, we will tell a little bit about what they tried, and then let people talk to them and meet them and ask questions. The second day will be the 98 team. We're going to do a presentation about the raising of the Big Piece, other things that we accomplished while we were there. I just talked with, for all you Canadian listeners, if any of you are out in Canada, Bob McEwen messaged me just a day or so ago, and we are hoping Bob will be able to be there. Bob was on board with us in 98 when he worked with 2020. I think ABC is 2020 or NBC. Anyway, he was with 2020, and it was NBC back then, I think. And Bob is a great, great storyteller. I love Bob to death. He's just an awesome man. Became friends with him on the ship. We've got Charles Haas that we've invited, who is a historian on both, and he can tell many stories as well. We've got some great photographs by Gunter Bobler. Gunter is Swiss. He is has allowed us to use some of his photos. There's a book out about it. It's called Our Story, celebrating the 20th anniversary of the 1998 Titanic expedition. And I wrote that book asking people to send me their memories, and I put their words in the book. So I will segue from incident to what we were doing, and I'll let them tell how they felt about certain things and what they saw and what they remembered. And it made for an outstanding read. We've had high reviews from everybody. They really feel that they were at the expedition the way we went through each chapter, each part of it. But that came out 4 years ago and had a lot of great results from it. And then we're going to celebrate the 25th anniversary on the 10th. And then the third day, this is what's going to be unique for your listeners. We have invited several cast members from James Cameron's movie. The third day is going to be a movie day where we talk about their experiences while filming. We have engaged two with discussions already. Both want to be there. All we have to do is cross the T's and dot the I's. And you know what you got to do. You just got to make the final agreements. If they're interested in coming, we're going to do everything we can to make it happen. We've got 4 more that we've lined up to talk with this coming week. And as soon as we get commitments, we're going to advertise those on the website. Registration opens March 1st. We're only going to have 250 people. The room that we've reserved said it will easily hold 250. And so we're going to limit it 250 so that everybody gets time with each guest that's there, each of the celebrities. You know, if we did one of these mega signature cons where there's 2,000 or 3,000 people, you have to wait in a long line. All you do is get a quick autograph. Hello, thank you very much. Next, you know, it's like that kind of thing. And we wanted it to be more personal, more where, oh, you have time to sit and talk with somebody maybe because there's a few minutes there. So we're doing that. And the website, if anybody is interested, is at voyagesexplorertitanic.com. One word, voyagesexplorertitanic.com. And you'll see that there's a tab that says Titanic Con 2023. There's also Our Story, which talks about the book. It talks about another project that I've created called Project Name Them All, which is about those bodies that they recovered from the ocean and took to Halifax and Nova Scotia. And they don't know their names. There's 42 of them that are unknown. And we have created a project. It's an international cast where if the cemeteries will allow us, we will take DNA. We won't exhume the bodies. We'll go down and get the DNA. And we'll take 2 samples. We're going to send one to Copenhagen, to the university there, where one of our DNA specialists is where he works. And then another to a medical DNA specialty lab in the South. And both of those then should corroborate DNA tests so that we don't have confusion. One will even give us lineage and background information. For example, possibly Serbian. Well, are they from Serbia or Turkey or maybe Italian or Spanish? Or, you know, there's a lot of different countries in that area where the skin tone may be similar. And so the Copenhagen test, ADNA is what it's called, will give us, this is the area in which this DNA sequence comes from. It has a lot of these characteristics in it. So by knowing a better location where one is from, we can test a smaller group of descendants. And we think we can name every one of those from which we get a good DNA sample, a viable DNA sample. But this Voyages Explorer Titanic site talks about the conference, how to register for it. And we are going to have an incredible week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday in Las Vegas. Come out a day early, enjoy the city for a day or so,
Yeah.
Fly out on Saturday, and then you can rest up Sunday before you have to go work on Monday.
I might I might see you there. So I'm born in Las Vegas and raised in Nevada, and I'm moving in the process of moving back to Reno. Um so I might buy my ticket and then come down and see it. Question, if I do, can I maybe film, do a live on site interview with you and maybe get some footage?
For you, we'll work out something for sure.
Get like a little
We'll
media.
definitely work out something. Maybe we can even get a couple of expedition people that you might want to talk to as well once you hear some of them and hear what they have to say. And there's several of them that are good presenters, and you would like talking to those.
Okay, yeah, that'd be interesting. I'm trying to turn this into a media company, not just a podcast. I'd like to, get some. I was trying to get my backstage media pass all star weekend. They were like, "Who Harris is drinking?" And get the hell out of here.
The other thing is you can use it as a job expense for your taxes. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great. um,
Mm.
so this big piece here, um, is this the largest piece that was discovered, or like? And then I guess two-part question, but is the Titanic scattered around the world in different museums, or is there,
This is
one?
the biggest piece that's been brought up. There are larger pieces down there that have broken off, but when they were contemplating recovery of some signature piece, something unique that could tell a story, it had to be big enough to fit into museums. You could get too big of a piece. What are you going to do with it? Sit in the parking lot, and it wouldn't do any good then. So they had to have a certain size. But this piece weighed 17 tons. It was not a little section. It may look little when you stand in front of it, but you consider 3 football fields long, 60 feet tall.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is off the starboard side. That's the port. So it's off the starboard side, about right in this area right here. So it was one of those pieces that fractured when the ship broke. There's been a lot of controversy about recovery. There's one group, really particularly in America, that was anti-recovery. They wanted the ship to be left alone. It's a graveyard. Those of us who did things like this and recovered the artifacts, we're ghouls, we're grave robbers. They were very vitriolic toward us. They were very hateful. And, I could understand they have their opinion, but it is their opinion. It is not how everybody feels. George Tulloch is the person who ran the company, and when the legal status to recover the artifacts were granted. Now, understand how it works. If you find something in international waters, if you go out there and you find something, you need to bring up 2 things. First of all, is a piece, and second of all, proof of the name of this ship that you find. Say you find the John Hancock, just to throw out a name there. So what you do is you take maybe that plate in, and you bring the video footage where you go and you show the name along the side of the bow, or you bring up the bell and the bell's got the name on it, and you present to an admiralty court. Now, admiralty courts it's different from a U.S. federal court. An admiralty court, there's several of them. Any country that has Atlantic coastline has an admiralty court in it. And what they did is they came up with this admiralty court idea in the 1700s because you had a British naval power, you had the French and the Spanish that were huge. You had America just getting started with their Navy, and all of the rules of warfare on the North Atlantic, in the Atlantic, they needed everybody to agree on those. One such rule is, if you find a ship and it's a warship from Spain, Spain maintains 100% rights to that ship. You can recover from it, but it all belongs to Spain because it's a warship. That is very crucial because back in the days with all the Spanish galleons, piracy was huge in the Caribbean. So they did not send treasure on regular old cargo ships. They all sent them on the military ships. A group called Odyssey found a ship that they nicknamed the Black Swan, and it was about $175 million worth of silver, gold, and some other things. And Spain filed a claim in an admiralty court because that ship that it was on was actually a ship of war, and the admiralty court ruled that it belonged to Spain. Now, Spain had to give the company a finder's fee and a recovery fee. I don't know what the exact percentage was. It may have been 20% or 30%. 30% of $170 million is not bad. Okay. That's not a bad chunk, but it belonged to them. So this admiralty court has jurisdiction over the wrecks. So George Tulloch worked with the court, and they said that our recovery status depended on three things: that RMS Titanic Inc., that's the company, had to, number one, anything that they brought up, they had to conserve it and preserve it so that it wouldn't just fall apart. They had to take care of what they recovered. That was a no-brainer, absolutely. Number two, and this was one of George Tulloch's big things that he pushed for. If you bought a Titanic artifact, guess where it would end up? It would end up on your mantle or over on a table that you've got, or it would be in the middle of a table in your house. And who would see that? Only the people that you invited to your house. I have a mantle right there, and that's where my pieces would go if I had something like that. Might be in a showcase right beside it or near it, but it would be over there, and nobody would get to see those unless I invited them into my house. So the judge said, we're not going to sell artifacts. The company totally agreed with that. They would be kept as a collection. Now, they could sell the collection, but the court had to approve who it was. The next group had to agree to all these agreements. It would be a qualified transfer. It would not be just, who wants to buy these? Okay, we'll sell them to you. The third caveat that I thought was wonderful is that the artifacts need to be put on display, and they need to be put on display so that future people, future generations could go and see them and learn the Titanic story. And so I support those. I support all three of those. And that's why there are no auctions for Titanic artifacts. It's because they're all under this guise of this one company, under the leadership and guidance of this other company.
Wow. So how much of the Titanic is still like under there, and will it ever be, it will just be there till the end of time at this point because of there's too much red tape also involved?
Well, the amount they've recovered about 6,000 pieces. Okay. There's not an exact count because if you have a watch and a band, is that one piece or two pieces? If you got a handbag and the handle falls off, is that one handbag and one handle, or is that one bag? You know, so a lot of those type situations came up as the artifacts were recovered. It's about 6,000 pieces. The best thing to say is that that's not even 1% of what's down there. This was only things in that debris field. So if you were to go in the front half of this ship, where all these cabins are, there's luggage, there's trunks. We have a speaker at one of our conference named Julie Williams, who had a great uncle on board, Albert and Sylvia Caldwell. And Albert told the family, he said he walked out of his stateroom and left $100 in gold coins in his dresser. $100 in 1912 gold is worth, she says it's worth about $30,000 today. And so that's laying in that stateroom, and that's either in that dresser or it's broken through the drawer and is laying in the floor, but it's still down there. And gold is going to still be gold for several thousand years, it's going to still look just like it does now.
So that ship is
There are leather suitcases, and inside the leather, the chemical tannin that's in the leather. May have heard the phrase growing up, tan your hide. Those of us boys in the South heard it quite often at school and from our parents when we'd misbehave, that we were going to get our hide tanned. And so the tannin that's in the leather helps preserve what's inside those leather cases. They've opened them up, and there's clothing, there's newspapers that you can actually read. There are pieces of history there waiting to be recovered. A lot of them are still down there. And so I asked the question, if to people who tell me it needs to be left alone, that's a grave site. And I'll go, well, are you in favor of all that stuff being destroyed? Because if it's not brought up and preserved, it's going to be destroyed eventually. It can't sit down there forever. It's, some of the pots and pans will eventually corrode to the point of destruction. It'll take a while. All this iron will eventually take a while. Somebody wrote a book called Ghosts of the Grand Banks, that on the 1000th anniversary of the sinking of Titanic in 2912, it's going to be a big rust spot down there. And so, that's still 800 years away from now, or 900 years away from now.
Is there footage? Obviously, they like the powers that be. Can somebody go down right now, or is there footage to where like they're water diving, scuba diving down, and they have like GoPros or whatever, and is that accessible to anybody right now who just like you can actually swim down there and take a tour of the ship? And
well, the pressure in your car tire that'll hold your car up off the ground is 42 pounds per square inch. Pressure at Titanic is 6,200 psi. When I teach my classes, I'll say, take a postage stamp. I used to have some stamps right here and hold this up. But you take a postage stamp and you stick one on the back of your hand. That's approximately a square inch. Put 2 cars on it. That's about three tons. Put another stamp beside it. Put 2 cars on it. Put another postage stamp. Put 2 cars on it. Everywhere you put a stamp, all over your skin, put 2 cars on that stamp, and it will crush severely, way, way up. You can't really free dive more than 300 feet. Some people go a little bit deeper that have had extreme dive training, but Titanic's at 2.5 miles down. Okay. Pressure's way too great. Now, what they did do is one group sued to get the right to go down and film. The judge approved that. That was the Haver decision in an appellate court. And the Haver decision opened up tourist dives. People can go down, but they're not supposed to touch the ship. They can go down and look and film and see. And that's what James Cameron did. He shows in his movie there are some scenes that he took with his ROV and his camera systems. The one thing that can't happen, though, is there's nobody out there to police the wreck. Now, I'm not accusing any person, so please don't think I'm accusing anything. Bob Ballard saw a statue called the Artemis in the debris field. The Artemis is this beautiful statue. It's about 2 feet tall, possibly. It was on a mantle in the ship. When it broke out, it was laying in the debris area. And before Cameron even went out, the recovery team went out there to try to find that Artemis. It's gone. They can't find it. So somebody went out there, and there was 2 submersibles that went down. Ballard would not have taken it. Ballard would have admitted it had he done so. So it was not Ballard that took the Artemis, but the Artemis has disappeared. So it's pretty well believed who did it, but I'm not, we don't want to say anything without any proof. But it was not Ballard. It was not Cameron. And there's some other things that have been missing. And you just can't police that wreck 2.5 miles down. It's 90 miles away from the nearest civilization.
Yeah. If I was an uber rich guy, you know, whoever, Kim Jong Un or just some tyrant, I mean, I would spend a lot of money trying to deploy some sort of team down there, see what I can get, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
in gold, we're talking artifacts.
There is a group called Ocean Gate. They have a submersible named Titan, and Titan has been down to the wreck, and they make tourist dives. And I have personal friends who have been on board Titan, and they have honored the intent of the law not to touch. And they've done an excellent job of following that mandate. But they get some incredible footage. They offer tourist dives. If you wanted to be a mission specialist, you could pay for a spot and go out there and take about a 6-hour drive around Titanic. It
And
costs
just like you're in a submarine type, and you're just in.
absolutely
Wow, I don't know
big
about
submersible. It's a little expensive, but maybe it's $250,000 was the last that they were talking about. So again, you're talking the super rich. Sure, I got $250,000 to spend. I think I'll go see Titanic for 6 hours, and they do.
if I wasn't so scared of drowning and halfway claustrophobic, I just don't know if I could go underwater like that. I mean, I'd be so freaked. I even the thought of it. There's two things that freak me out: free falling and like submersion. Yeah, those two
Well,
things.
you would have to worry about drowning at that depth. The implosion would be instantaneous. If something happened, and it would be like boom, and it's all gone.
Okay.
It is immediate. So you wouldn't have to worry about that part of it. But now claustrophobia, the French ROV has a 6-foot sphere. It's 6 feet from surface to surface. I'm 6'3", so I can't stand up in it. I've got to bend over, and there's equipment on it, so I've got to bend over even lower. And so they end up with two people laying on their stomachs, looking out these two little front portholes in the front, and then a person sits like this over them in a seat, and he's the one that steers the submersible. That's Nautil. And so you're talking about claustrophobic. That is, the French require a doctor's note stating that you are not claustrophobic. You would get in there and you would get comfortable, and they would turn the lights out. And then when they released everything, you would take 2.5 hours in darkness to drop to the bottom of the ocean.
Oh no.
And you'd be kind of cold. It would get chilly. So you're in sweatshirt and a jacket and things like that.
Oh.
They turned the power on as you got close to the bottom. I know you're starting to shake already. And then you'd be 4 to 6 hours, depending on what your mission was. Yeah. And then they would say, okay, we're ready to return to the surface. So you get good and comfortable. You put your pillow down there, and they would say, here we go. And they would release the ballast, and it would start lifting. And they would say, let's conserve some power. And they'd turn the lights off, and you'd be in total darkness for another 2.5 hours as it goes back up to the surface.
Oh, no way. See, I did one of those. I've done the isolation tank. That whole thing. Like I can go in an MRI machine, but it's the fact, like I could open up the isolation tank and hey, I'm in a room, but underwater like that and just oh god, no, I don't.
It'd be different. And there's other complications too. There have been several women who have dived down to the shipwreck. I'm trying to think. Sarah James was the one on our expedition that went down. And if you've got to go to the bathroom, you're in there for a while. They tell you not to eat any food from a certain time prior to your dive so that tanks get emptied. Because if you're down there and you got to go to the bathroom, you don't have a whole lot of place to stand up and go. You got to do it right there. And there's no privacy and things like that. And so usually the first thing they do when they get up to the surface is they open up, they stand up, they stretch a little bit, and then they want something to drink, something to eat, and then they go to the restroom, and that's what I do. So, it's a unique environment. It really was. I was asked if you were ever invited to go down, would you? I said, absolutely. I would try it one time just to say, I've seen it with my own eyes.
Yeah.
I've studied it for so many years. People think that a lot of us Titanic researchers are sort of, something's wrong with us sometimes because we know so much about the ship and so much about the people on board. And there's truth to that. I can tell you about some of those passengers, some of the things that they had to deal with after they survived. I can tell you about their families. I can talk about their experience. I know more about them than I know about some members of my own family, not necessarily close members, but extended family. But that has been such a big part of so many people's lives. It's a different world, it really is. It's
Yeah.
been a special part in mine. And I felt drawn to the ship for some reason. And I guess it was my family member in a way saying, come tell my story.
And did you know that you had a descendant on there before you got interested, or were you just naturally interested and then
Found out there was a Willard on board and thought it was cool. And I asked my mom and I said, did anybody from the Willard family die on Titanic? And I showed her the book and she said, no, we would have heard about that. That would have been something that we would have known about, until I traced the genealogy back farther than word of mouth. And, several generations back there. It is. And that was pretty special. She is died in 1962, I believe it was, in Riverside, California. She had no children. She had no husband. She never married. And they interred her in a mausoleum in Riverside. 2 years later, her brother, who has a cemetery plot in Minnesota, had her transferred. She was removed from that mausoleum, transferred, and is buried in the family plot in Minnesota, but she doesn't have a marker on her grave. And so one of the things that I did, I started right before COVID changed the world, and then reinitiated this call a few weeks ago. I called the cemetery and I told them that you have buried in the Willard family plot one Constance Willard, and she is in an unmarked grave. And he said, that is correct. He said, we know where it's at, though, because we have it marked on the official diagram where her remains were buried. It was cremated. It was not like a full, huge coffin. And I said, well, I'm a distant cousin. I told him about the genealogy. And I said, she was a survivor of the RMS Titanic. He says, she was. We don't have that down here. And I said, she was. And I said, I would like to put a marker on her grave, something nice, something appropriate that the cemetery approves. It's got her name, her dates, and a survivor of the RMS Titanic. I said, she needs to at least have her name on her grave. And he said, let us do some research. We got to look at some legal issues. Also in that same cemetery, a little ways over, are two other survivors of Titanic. They were related to the Pillsbury factory. You remember Poppin' Fresh, the Pillsbury Doughboy? That Pillsbury family. So they were survivors, and that is where they were buried after they passed. So they looked up the legal records. The cemetery plot was purchased by Constance's brother and had her brought there. And he died later on, a few years later in the 1960s. So he's buried with his wife. Constance is over to the side a little bit. So legally, that branch of the Willards owns that plot. And he said, we don't know if anybody's even been here to look at these in 20 or 30 years, but I guess it'd be the great grandson, one of the great grandchildren now, I guess, would legally own the plot. And they said, if they come along and say, we don't like that, remove that, we'd have to take it up because they're the owners. He said, but we'd work out, maybe put it somewhere else, pointing to where the grave is type thing, to honor where she's at. He said, but we talked with our boss and he talked with the owner of the cemetery, and they said, who's going to object to something like that? It's not costing them anything. It's just paying tribute with a name. It's not gaudy or tacky. I can understand. I wouldn't want it if it was tacky, but to have her name, her dates, survivor, RMS Titanic. And, he said, do you want put on there by you that you put this up? And I said, we can put some kind of a line up there, um, erected by Titanic Conference family, something like that, Titanic Con. And I thought that what I'd do also is open up an opportunity for people to, if they wanted to make a contribution, we'd put their name in the donations to help do that. So some things are still happening. Some stories are still going forward. It's very special.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like one of those things, 11 years later.
111 years this year.
There's still things coming out. We went over the red tape, they're still pulling up pieces. One of those things that's going to be around, another 100 years, or you said 1,000 years, and there's going to be rust and a whole bunch of things, man. That's incredible. So like every day when you wake up, you're just, is this something like at what age did you embody it though? Like, did you take on, this, it seems like you're just a man with a very driven with a mission, but now you have a purpose, not just for yourself, but for others and other people of the Titanic. Like, when did you take on that sort of,
the mid 90s is when I really accelerated what I was doing. My mom would always get me Christmas presents or birthday presents that had something to do with Titanic, a new book or something like that. She would always, is there something you'd like for Christmas? And I'd say yes. And that's what she'd get me. And it was Titanic based and things like that. So I had quite a few of those type things. And the more I read, I did something that was real geeky. I liked getting 2 copies of every book because in one of them I could make notes and in one of them I could keep without my notes in case I just wanted to read it. So I'd highlight and mark and put little, comments and put little Post-it types and index card types in some of those books. And that started probably mid 90s is when I really kicked it in. And then we had a chance to go out in 96. Wow. And then I was doomed. I was hooked.
Yeah. And how long has this conference been going on? Did you say this?
We had our first one in 1999. Didn't do it again for a long time, but we started this in 2016 was our first one. And we've done it every year in August, except for 2020 for COVID. We had to not do it for COVID purposes. So 21 and 22. 2019, we had 9 Titanic family members present. It was a very special one. And there were 9 family members that were there. So
and
they all told the stories.
Are you trying to get Leonardo at this 2023? Is he going to be one of
He is not on our list because I don't think we can we have his fee for a daily appearance.
Right.
If he shows up, we will welcome him with open arms. But he and Kate Winslet are just in a different zone now. They're both active in so many different things. She's turned into an incredible actress. He's Leo. He's Leonardo. He's so special and unique in all of his movies as well. But we're looking right now at some of the other actors that are in it. One that fascinates me that I'd love to talk to is Billy Zane. I thought his role as the bad guy, as one of the villains, showed tremendous acting skill on his part, because there were times when I would feel sorry for Caledon Hockley. And you don't usually feel sorry for a bad guy. but he would have a facial expression or the way he would do a line. You almost had pity for him. And that is a difficult acting or character acting to do, is to have someone feel pity for the bad guy. And I thought, man, that's a great job he did. He's one I would like to talk with. The other one that's so versatile is the lady who played Rose's mother, Ruth DeWitt Bucator, Frances Fisher. She was in the movie Unforgiven as the madam of the brothel there. And she just lights that movie up. She is so brilliant in that role in Unforgiven. And then to see her as the staunch, first class lady with that back always straight up and that chin straight out and that head only turning from side to side. She did such a great dramatic change to be in that role. And what I'd love to hear them talk about is things they did in their roles. One of the scenes that you don't see in Cameron's movie, I found out about in 1999. We had an actor named Bernard Fox come from the movie. The reason we got Bernard Fox is that he was also in A Night to Remember in the 1950s. So he was in 2 Titanic movies. A lot of people remember Bernard Fox from Bewitched. He was in Hogan's Heroes. One of his last major movie roles was in The Mummy with Brendan Fraser. He was Winston, the pilot of the airplane that went flying, and the sand image starts chasing them. But Winston was the airplane pilot. And so he was able to tell us about a lot of those type things. So we had him there. I'm trying to think where I was. I digressed when I talked about that. But he told us about so many behind the scenes things. I know what it was. It was the clipped out, deleted scene. He told us that there was a scene of one of the lifeboats unloading on Carpathia, and he was in it. Johan Griffith was in it. Liam Toohey was in it, who plays Chief Joffin, Chief Baker Joffin. And what they are doing is, here they are. They're haggard. They're cold. They've just come off of a lifeboat, and in front of them is a gauntlet of wives looking for their husbands. Have you seen my husband? Where's my husband? Please tell me where my husband is. Did you see anything? And they've got to go through this wall of women, and all of them are looking at the men, and some of them are going, why did you survive and my husband didn't? And Bernard called it the gauntlet. He said we had to run that gauntlet of women, and he said that would eat your heart out. It would really rip it out. And so with the wonderful YouTube, they have some of those deleted scenes available, and it's under deleted scene Titanic, a Titanic deleted scene Carpathia, I think, and it shows them go through there. And so we got to learn about that from Bernard Fox, who was in that scene. And there's others that are just as powerful. And he made a masterpiece. He really did. A lot of people say, well, it'd been better if Jack and Rose part wasn't there, but nobody would have gone to see it. It was the Jack and the Rose love story that brought the people to the theater. One of my students came into class. This is about April. Titanic had been in the theater since December, so it's 4 or 5 months. And she said, Coach, how many times have you gone to see Titanic? And I said, 5, maybe 5 or 6. She said, we're going again tonight. This will be my 28th time. I just love Jack. I cry every time he dies. This was a high school girl, and she was in love with Jack Dawson, and that's why she kept going back. She said, I just cry when he dies. I had to sort of chuckle at that, but she remembers that movie well.
Yeah, man, long lasting. Do you ever think that they will make a Titanic remake, like the remake and everything else? Or
probably, but I don't know if it'll ever do as good as this one did.
Awesome.
I don't know how it could do any better than this one did. They would have to do a different angle on it, I would think.
You like a Netflix series of some sort? You can get like episodes of the progression and the franticness and everything, maybe.
I'm sure they will try. All great events are recreated over and over again. You just have to get a generation that's willing to try it and getting somebody willing to invest in it, I guess. I would hope that they would hold true to the basic stories and the basic things that went on, as Cameron did, and not create fiction like CBS did. CBS took the name of the ship, it hits an iceberg and sinks, but a lot of the other stuff in it, 90% of it was either incorrectly attributed or misnomered or even total fiction. So I would hope that if they do it, it's truthful.
Yeah. And last question, like, you know, are you have you been reached out, you know, from like whether it's a History Channel, ABC, NBC, you know, are you one of the guys that you know, when these companies are looking to invest in something like this and they look, hey, you know, we need a guy on board? Because I could just picture you, you know, like on History or Nat Geo, and you're talking about, you know, but in that History Channel, you know, editing way. Have you ever done things like that?
Nat Geo did a special with Bob Ballard for 2012, and they used some of my research, and they credited me in the thank yous at the end. I was very honored to have them do that. Nat Geo tends to have their own group of experts that they rely on over and over again. They've had good success with those people, and they keep going back to them, and I can understand that. The History Channel doesn't do much anymore unless it's aliens or something like that. They've drifted so far from history that it's sad. Discovery is going the same way. They hopefully are going to go try to shift back and do some adventure things again. But I've had Infinity Productions out of Canada. One of the producers up there, the owner of the company and the producer, bought the book, and he bought it and he read it and he called me up and had the company call me up, and he said, Shell is the name of this man's first name, loves the book. He wants to know if you would be willing to work with him on making a documentary about the big piece. I would be one of the executive producers, because I wouldn't have to research. I could tell them what happened when and when we did whatever, and save a lot of research time and a lot of research budget, because I remember. Plus, I know everybody that was on board of both of them, so both expeditions, so I could call them and get footage, photographs, interviews, and things like that without them having to do a lot of chasing down. And I said, absolutely, I'd be honored to have you use my book as the outline of a documentary. The problem is we're in a sensational world where people want shock value. A lot of the networks have said, what is your conspiracy? What is the conflict? And this is not a story with a conflict. This is a story with an incredible success at the end of it, a big triumph. What is the big piece is a presentation I'm going to be doing in Orlando in April. And I'll give you a hint, it's not just a piece of iron. And so it's going to have some other components to it about just what this piece represents to RMS Titanic Inc., the group that recovered it. And so they were going to cover a lot of that aspect as well. And the project is not dead. They just don't have anybody that wants a good documentary anymore. They all want something like a shock value and something like that. They want a reality show effect on an audience. And that's sad. BBC is the one that's the closest to doing real documentaries. But the bad part about booking something with the BBC is they don't show it anywhere but in the UK. The BBC doesn't show their shows here in America. So even though it's a large American team doing an American book from an American author in America, they'd show it in the UK. And that's frustrating that they don't think that there's a lot of confidence in just doing a good documentary anymore. And that's sad.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to fund your own things, and sounds like you have a good Titanic family though, and you got some really great things going on. And the people that are a part of it are, all you need really.
We could do something without a lot of the cost involved, just with the people. The biggest cost that it would undertake would be transportation. If I wanted to interview some of my friends who are on the 98 expedition, one's in Canada, one's in New Jersey, one is on the middle of Canada, several are in the UK, some are in France, one's in Connecticut. The big piece is in Las Vegas. One part of it is in Orlando. So you'd be hopping on planes and going around and filming quite a bit. And then I would need somebody that would know how to do the sound and know how to do the filming. And then you got to get somebody that's awesome with editing and putting it together. You got to get somebody that's a known face doing the narration, doing the story. We could get the story written, but to get a name in front of it to read it, it's going to cost a chunk. So those would all be budget concerns. But, there are stories to be told, and one day maybe there will be.
Yeah. Well, when I get rich, I'm gonna set aside a budget for the vision you just expressed, and I'm gonna set aside a 250,000 to go down to Titanic. I'm gonna get 500,000. We can go together, man.
You got that right. I'll bring the pizza. You bring the soda.
Let's do it, man. I could lay next to you, for a couple hours. I'll probably take a half a Xanax and just, wake up when I get there. but but no, hey, thank you so much. This has been I'm not gonna lie, like I feel like retarded on this episode. I'm gonna go back, do more research. I'm gonna rewatch Titanic, and I would love to have you back on in a couple months, maybe after your April event, before the Vegas event, to do a recap and give some more promotion. Because as I'm sitting here in the moment too, I'm like, all these other questions are coming up, and because it's such a vast topic to speak about. So I would definitely love to have you back though. And
Would love to do that. I would encourage you to go see this at the theater. You can watch Titanic on your television screen, but it is a much better view when it's on this enormous, huge wall in front of you. It may not be in the theater again in my lifetime, so I had to go. I had to go see it again. And I sat there and I sat through the entire thing. I usually have to go to the bathroom, or I go get some popcorn. I'd take a stretch break in the middle of some of the movies, but not that one. I didn't. I didn't move. I didn't doze off.
yeah,
I sat there and watched and absorbed again that incredible work.
yeah. And now that I have so having this conversation with you, it's going to put me in a different perspective, and it gives me a different respect, for the people on board, and for what actually went on. So really great stuff. Did you enjoy your time tonight though on the Harris's Drinking Again pubcast?
Loved it. Thank you so much for inviting me out here. I mean, it was fantastic.
Hey, I definitely appreciate it, man. Um, and then on the back end, of course, I'm going to put all the your links, a lot of the books that you spoke about, voyages, exploretitanic.com. That's all going to be out. This will be out in a couple weeks. I take my time really getting some good editing in, and hopefully I gave a decent interview and slash conversation. In parting, is there any plugs you want to give, and just any positivity words of inspiration to the world or to the families? Anything you would like to say?
The thing that I normally end a presentation with when I talk to school groups is, maybe Titanic is not your thing. Yeah, I know about Titanic. I was forced to sit here and listen to this thing today. Find your own happiness. Find your own something to be involved in, and read about it and learn about it, and have it affect your life in a positive way. Learn from it. And there's so many things out there that need their stories told and become a voice. So, whatever you find. Some people love Lord of the Rings, and I know Lord of the Rings people that can tell you the 12th word on the 87th page of the second volume. I know I don't know what that is for the record. But I know that they love and they are passionate about that. And find your own happiness. Be passionate about many things that are true and just and honest and right.
Excellent. Man, that's great ending note. I appreciate you so much. Good luck to the rest of your endeavors. We'll keep in touch on the back end, and definitely look forward to having you on again, though.
We'll do this again. Thank you so much. I have thoroughly enjoyed it.
Hey, you have a great night, sir.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Absolutely. Yo, what's going on, guys? If you like this video, click above. We got 2 more right there, or down there, or somewhere. Hit that subscribe button. Stay tuned for more content. We got amazing interviews like the one you've just seen or the clip you just seen. I don't know what you watch because I put this behind the end of every video. So stay tuned. Hit that like, subscribe. Harry's drinking again. It goes up.